Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. This is the video about stage three of the process, which is generating themes. So we are going to look first of all at what a theme is, and then we will look at how to generate themes. So let's just quickly review the six-stage process. Hopefully you've done the familiarization and coding by this point. So remember, I recommended at least two sessions of coding. So perhaps you can do familiarization and coding together, and then do a second coding stage before you move on to the theme generation stage, which is stage three. Notice that stage four is also about themes. So that's developing and reviewing the themes that you generate in stage three. And then stage five will be refining, defining, and naming the themes. So it seems pretty obvious, but I would say anyway that stages three, four, and five are all about themes. So my understanding of thematic analysis is that there are really two main stages. You have the coding and the theme stages, and the theme stage goes through three separate phases, which are first generating or making the initial themes, and then developing, reviewing, and then finalizing the themes. So let's have a look at this in a bit more detail. So we're going to start by going back to the end of the coding stage. So at the end of the coding stage, you should have lots of individual, specific, particular, differentiated codes which capture specific instances of meaning. So you've attached the specific labels to the sentences to identify particular meanings in the text. Okay, so at the end of that stage, stage two, you have lots of differentiated, specific, and particular meanings. The difference between a code and a theme is that whereas a code captures specific or particular instances of meaning, themes capture patterns of meaning across the journal. So it's recurring instances of meaning, okay? Patterns of meaning, things that happen repeatedly at different stages in the journal writing process. So we have a nice quotation here from Brown and Clark, the second one on the PowerPoint. For reflexive TA, a theme has to capture a wide range of data that are united by and evidence a shared idea. So one thing I would say at this point is that I think the kind of research that Brown and Clark have in mind is a much bigger data set than yours. So your journals are actually relatively short. Often a researcher is studying a much bigger quantity of information. So when they say a theme has to capture a wide range of data, I think they're referring to a larger data set. So I would say that your theme has to capture recurring experiences in your journal. Okay, not necessarily a wide range of data because you don't have a lot of data to begin with. Brown and Clark also say themes can entail features such as shared meaning or a conceptual pattern, or they can be fully developed. So those are three phrases that they use to talk about themes in their writing. So they could have a shared meaning. So they would therefore have a shared code, I think, in the previous stage, or they could reflect a conceptual pattern, or they could be fully developed. Okay, so let's have a look at what a theme is not. A theme is not a summary. Okay, so good thematic analysis is not a topic and a summary of the points that come under that topic. So a summary is not your goal or objective here, or in other words, TA is not about providing a summary of everything that you wrote about a particular topic. Summaries report a range of responses around a particular issue, so therefore they will likely include too many different meanings. So I think your goal here is to identify one single theme and then go as deeply as possible into that themes. So this is the analysis part, which is looking at something specifically in depth and in detail. So try to focus on one theme and then unpack it or explore it in as much depth as you possibly can in the writing stage later on. So let's just look at themes again, because I think it's important. 3 of the stages are about themes, and also it's called thematic analysis. So I think it's good to be clear about what a theme actually is. So in reflexive TA, a theme captures a pattern or a cluster of shared meaning, and they are organized around a central organizing concept. So this is an important idea in Brown and Clark, this idea of a central organizing concept. So I will talk about this in a little bit more detail later on. Themes are defined by meaning unity and conceptual coherence. So this relates back to the idea of a central organizing concept. So these are some alternative phrases that can be used to refer to that. So it's unified by the meaning, or it's conceptually coherent, or it has a central organizing concept. It's based around an idea. Okay. Your task is to explore the use of shared or similar meanings in different contexts, so different periods in your journal. For example, if something appears in only one journal entry, it's clearly not a theme that is emerging from the wellness journal or the reflective journal. Likewise, if this phenomena or experience that you're writing about only occurs within a limited time period, let's say the first week or only the first and second weeks, then I don't think we can say that this is enough to establish it as a theme for the whole month. Okay, so remember your research question was over the course of a month. However, the element that you report or the theme that you report at the end of your journal needn't happen every time you sit down, and it needn't happen in every single week of the journal. So I think if it occurs in 3 weeks, that's certainly enough for a theme, or maybe 3 journal entries at different periods, let's say week 1, week 2, and week 4, or week 2, week 3, and week 4, for example, then that's definitely looking like a candidate for a theme. So it's a recurring experience or a recurring pattern of meaning in the text. So Brown and Clark say that themes could either be semantic or surface level. So here we're looking at the meaning of words. Semantics is basically the meaning of words. So it could be surface level. It could be, the theme could be very similar to the meaning of the words that you're using in the text, or it could be more latent. Okay, so it could be something that you have to uncover, something a bit more hidden, something below the surface. So something you can see beyond or beneath the text that you can kind of dig up, if you like, or excavate from the text. That is also acceptable as a theme. So it needn't be something that is on the surface level of the text. It could be something that you discover beneath the text, that's not actually written there, but is something that you can see beneath the words, if you like. Contradictory elements can also be included in the same theme. So we did talk about conceptual unity, but this doesn't exclude the possibility of contradictory elements being part of the theme. So if you have contradictory elements, they can be included in the same theme, and this is not a problem at all. Okay, so let's move on and let's look at why we call this stage generating the generation stage, or generating initial themes. Firstly, because the process is seen as being creative. So it's not seen as this totally objective analysis. It's a creative process in which the researcher inputs their own creativity. Secondly, the word generating indicates that we're at the initial stage of looking at the themes or making the themes. So this is just the first stage in a process. The next 2 videos will come back and show you how we are going to develop and then finalize the themes later on. So we're still at an exploratory stage here. Okay, and as the explorer, as I just said, it's exploratory. Let's go back to the metaphor of the explorer. So you will encounter some difficulties and problems at this stage. I think there will be some uncertainty. The advice here from Brown and Clark is to ask yourself, where will this journey take me? Or even better, perhaps, to let the journal and your themes take you on a journey somewhere. So don't be thinking, how quickly can I finish this? How quickly can I move to the next stage? You need to tolerate some ambiguity, perhaps. You need to tolerate some uncertainty. You need to be open to the direction that this process of analysis is going to take you in, and you will get better results as a consequence. So it's a little bit like meditation. You should try to remain open as possible and see where it takes you. So be prepared for finding your way, losing your way again, finding your way again, perhaps a few times on your journey. Try to stay relaxed about this. This doesn't mean you're doing bad thematic analysis. It probably means that you're doing good thematic analysis. Okay, everything at this stage is still provisional. So provisional means subject to change. So these are your initial ideas. You can develop them and change them in later stages. So your aim in this first stage is to generate a number of potential working themes. So potential here means not final, not finalized. It's one of the possible themes that you will write about later on. So your goal here is to generate a large number of themes, and then later you can refine them, select them, and finalize them before the writing stage. Also, the second one here, reflect on the story that they allow you to tell about the journal and the research question. So as you're generating the themes, you don't have to choose the two most common or the two most repetitive things that you experienced. And you should probably focus more on the most salient experiences that were also recurring experiences in different periods of the journal. But also think about how interesting the story they allow you to tell is. You're going to do a PowerPoint presentation on this later. So that will be presented in the style of a story to the class. And also when you write your thematic analysis case study report, choose the most interesting aspects of your experience. So if something is happening a lot, but it's quite mundane, then don't write about that. If something is happening slightly less often, but it's more interesting and it allows you to write about your experience in a more insightful way and a more reflexive way, then go with that element. Finally, on this PowerPoint, good themes should be distinctive and not overlapping with other themes. So start to think about this as well. Try to look at the different codes you have from the previous stage. And when you're making those codes into these themes, when you're generating these themes, try to make sure that the themes are distinctive. Okay, so we're also thinking about how we can combine different codes from the previous stage and also how we can differentiate them clearly, because you want to have two clearly distinct themes when you write your thematic analysis report later on. So try to make sure that the themes are not overlapping, that they're clear and distinct from one another. If they are overlapping, that's probably suggesting that you could combine those two into a single theme. Okay, so let's have a look at some guiding questions for the theme generation stage. Number one, does this theme capture something meaningful? So as I said already, it's not just something that happens a lot, it's something that is meaningful. Is it coherent? So are the themes that I'm generating coherent? Will they allow me to tell a coherent story about my experience when I write and speak about this later on? Does it have a central idea that combines the journal data and the codes? So we will look at this central idea again shortly. And as we mentioned previously, does it have clear and distinct boundaries from other themes? So as I said already, ultimately, your themes need to work together to tell a coherent story. You should begin to assess the themes in your relation to your overall story and the analysis it tells, even at this stage. So this is something that you need to think about moving forward as you move towards the writing stage at the end. So when you're generating initial themes, mind mapping could help you. It might be useful to draw diagrams of various types. I think the most common way would be to do a mind map. And this might help you to clarify the themes and to ensure that they're distinctive. It may also help you to explore how the themes interrelate. And as I said already, consider the story that you want to tell in your analysis later on. So there are various ways of doing mind maps. One way would be to use continuous lines, broken lines, and arrowed lines to show different connections between the themes that you're generating. Perhaps these could indicate main themes. So the main themes are in the kind of oval shapes here. The sub-themes are in the rectangular shapes. And then links to sub-themes could be with unbroken lines, possible relationships between them with broken or dotted lines. And then you could have things like stronger relationships, weaker relationships, and so on. So you're thinking about whether these things can be combined into the same theme or whether they need to be excluded from that theme for later on. So there are no rules here about how you do this, but thematic maps or these kind of mind maps are useful for most people when they consider patterns, connections, interconnections, and disconnections between the various themes that you're generating. So if you want to use software to help you do that, and one of them here is called MindMap. So this, I think, will help you to visualize your ideas. So if you want to use online software to help you do that, this one comes recommended. Okay, so let's look at 5 things to keep in mind. And the first one of these will be the central organizing concept that I mentioned before. So Brown and Clark do mention this a lot. So this is an important idea. And they use this specific image of the dandelion head. Okay, so each theme has a central organizing concept like a dandelion head. So the central concept is visualized in the center of the dandelion head. Okay, so the question they recommend that you ask yourself, what is the essence of the theme? So that's the center of the dandelion head. And can the specific codes from the previous stage be integrated and unified under that theme? So all seeds are connected to the central anchoring point. Second thing to consider is that themes do not have to capture everything in the data set. Okay, and a theme does not have to be evidenced in every single journal article. You can have several themes developed from several, many, or all journal entries. Okay, so you don't need to have the same theme reoccurring in every single entry. It just needs to be in multiple entries and hopefully in different periods or different stages of the journal. So the image of the new image of the dandelion head is showing that the theme does not need to be evidenced in every single journal entry. But all of the journal entries do need to be connected to that. All of the journal entries that you include under that theme later on do need to be connected to that central theme. So I think this new image does bring that out quite closely, quite clearly. And the question to ask yourself at this stage is, does the theme help me to tell a particular story about the journal and to address the research question? Okay, so the third thing to keep in mind is don't get too attached to your themes. So the idea is to generate multiple themes. So you're just generating or creating the themes. If you decide that a theme is not looking like a good candidate theme, potential theme, then just let it go. Okay, create another theme, combine the themes, or maybe distinguish the themes, separate the themes, create new themes, let the themes go. This is the process here. So try to make sure that the process is quite fluid and evolving. Don't get too fixed on particular ideas and don't be afraid to change your mind. Stage 4, although you will end up writing about 2 or 3 themes, probably 2 is what I will recommend. You should play around with a larger number of themes. So ask yourself, can I create more themes or extend or develop the themes that I have now? And number 5, the final question to ask yourself here, or the final, recommended strategy here is to avoid a question and answer approach. So if you do take this approach of just simply asking questions like, how was my practice positive? How was my practice negative? You're already limiting the way in which you're investigating or analyzing the journal. This will probably lead to a very superficial reading of the journal and a very boring case study analysis report, and also a very boring presentation. Also, I think it's going to end up as a list of features or possibly even a summary if you take this approach. So avoid this type of very binary or linear approach, and also not linear, dualistic approach, and also avoid asking questions to lead your research. So you have the general overarching research question about how you're being affected by the wellness practice for a month. That should be somewhere in the back of your mind, but don't apply a question and answer approach to the text. In terms of the research question, don't be too fixated on it at this stage of the research question. At this stage of the research, this is still an exploratory process, okay? So it should be somewhere in the back of your mind. Of course, you've already thought about this during the coding stage, so you've already ensured that the information you're considering in this stage is related to the research question. So don't fixate on it, don't focus on that too much. You're still exploring a range of meanings and trying to find something salient and deep in your own experience at this stage. So just keep that question loosely in mind rather than looking for specific answers to that question at this stage. So the important thing is that you're exploring patterns of meaning. You're not looking for specific answers. And please note that your assignments will include both themes, and tell the reader how the theme addresses the research question and what the implications of this are. So the themes themselves do not need to answer the question, okay? The other elements of the writing will also enable you to answer the question. So let's have a look at what I mean by this. We have a nice quotation here from Brown and Clark. The themes you develop provide the reader with evidence for your answer. Okay, themes themselves do not have to answer the research question. So when you write your thematic analysis case study report, this will be the supporting evidence. So you will have the name of the theme as the topic, and then you have supporting evidence from your journal, so a quotation from the text. But that doesn't have to answer the research question in itself. The rest of the paragraph will answer that. So your role as a writer is to explain and analyze the themes and why they matter. So the themes do not speak for themselves. Okay, they do not need to answer the question themselves. You will answer the question when you write your essay by analyzing those themes, by unpacking those themes, by explaining why those themes are salient and relevant. So, as I said already about contradiction, the final one on this PowerPoint, individual themes should not contain items that contradict the central organizing concept. If you do include contradictory information, then make sure that the central organizing concept reflects these contradictions. So there should be no contradictory elements under that theme. If there are, you should consider include either removing them, obviously, or making the theme, refining the theme so it captures that contradiction. Okay, so when can you stop generating the themes? A good question. You can stop generating the themes once you've engaged with the initial codes, grouped and regrouped them into tentative themes. You've explored their potential developments through some kind of mapping exercise. You're probably ready to move on to the theme development and review stage. So at this point, I would definitely take a break and come back to the review and development stage after you've given yourself some distance from the initial theme generation stage. Don't forget that this is an iterative process. You can go back to the earlier stage if you want, and your goal is not to achieve some kind of perfect analysis here. When you feel like it's good enough, it's probably a good time to take a break. So some other tips here. Try to embrace uncertainty. So we already mentioned this with the metaphor of the explorer. So you're not looking for specific and definite answers here. My advice is also to give yourself some breaks between the different stages. So for example, if you did 3 60-minute sessions once a week, this would clearly be better than one long 3-hour session. So maybe you spend something like an hour doing stages 1 and 2, familiarization and coding, and then maybe you come back and you review the codes and generate the themes. That would be the second session, and then take another break, and then maybe in the third session you do stages 4 and 5, which will be explained in the next video, but it's basically reviewing and finalizing those themes. So take some breaks between the different stages. You will continue to think about this during those breaks, and it will help you to get some distance and to do better thematic analysis. Number 3, just as with meditation, don't get stuck in your thoughts. It's better to write things down, put them on a piece of paper, and of course you have something you can refer back to later or simply reject. And as I said already, take regular breaks between the different stages. Don't try to do everything all at once just before the deadline, and this is not going to lead to a good outcome. Okay, so in the next video, we will look at developing and reviewing the themes and refining, defining, and naming the themes. Okay, so that's the end of the video about theme generation. So I'm going to say goodbye now. Okay, thanks very much.